Hello, Komet29 here with another Topic of the Week video, and this week I'll be talking about some fictional pairings of the Bickering variety. This week's topic was submitted by Tumblr user grimaulkins, and her topic is: how do HanLeia, Pokeshipping, IchiRuki, and other well-known Bickering love-hate ships compare to Romione, and what makes their portrayal and execution better than the latter pairing? Oh, those are some good pairings. You know, Han and Leia from, especially, the original trilogy of Star Wars is one of the classic examples of your bickering love-hate relationships. Now, one of the things that's so appealing about this, at least from my perspective, is that you have these two characters who obviously do like each other. They've got the sexual tension going on, but then they deny it. It's like they decided, no, I don't like you. But I realize that I like you, and I don't like that I like you. And then it's just like, argh. But then, obviously they're going to get together. Well, like with Han and Leia. They bickered, back and forth. They called each other names, like laser brain. And like Leia calls Han a scruffy looking nerfer. But then he's just like, what are you calling scruffy looking? And it's like, one of the important things about this, and I'll talk about this with some of the other relationships, is that when they do this bickering, they take these shots back and forth, it's not genuinely mean-spirited. It's fun, it's banter, and it's just light stuff because it's not really, like, offending them. It's not really genuinely, like, awful things. It's almost just, like I said, it's playful banter between them. But but also another important aspect is that's not just it. You also get to see that these characters do genuinely care about each other. You see that, with Han and Leia, especially in Empire Strikes Back. You see that with, like, despite the fact that Han and Leia are bickering, and Han is, like, throwing a big fit, he's like, okay, but even at the beginning of Empire Strikes Back, he's been with the rebellion for years. If he really hated it so much, he could have skedaddled after the Battle of Yavin. But he didn't. He also goes out and goes to rescue Luke, risking his life. But he doesn't care. This is all a part of his character arc that I've talked about this in the past before with Han's character arc of where he starts off as a selfish scoundrel but ultimately decides he grows and cares about, his friends and his love for Leia, and that causes him to change the way he acts and be a better person. And you see a lot of, with Han and Leia's relationship, when you see the development of the characters, and you see that despite the fact that, in the beginning, like in the A New Hope, where, they did bicker, but you can also get a little sexual tension, but it's really there in Empire Strikes Back, where, Han and Leia are desperately trying to deny it, but then you see, especially when they're in Cloud City, you can see, yeah, they really like each other. They have a lot of these nice moments, and especially culminating in the whole "I love you, I know" scene. So, ultimately, it shows that despite the fact that they bicker, despite the fact that they take these shots at each other, they do care, and you see this going into Return of the Jedi, that Leia goes and rescues Han with, of course, she had, Luke and Lando helping, but she goes in there and thaws out Han, and it's like, yeah, you may have said that you didn't care about each other, but you do, and that's the payoff. It's to show that, yeah, they may act like they don't like each other, but they do, and then they get together, and it's all nice and sweet, and that's the payoff to all the build-up throughout the relationship. Pokeshipping is somewhat similar with Ash and Misty, though there's no definitive payoff because of really the nature of the Pokemon anime. It's meant to go on and on and on and on, so that no matter how much they spent, time together, there's not going to, I don't believe there's ever going to be a definitive in-game pairing just because of the nature of it. But you saw, especially with, Ash and Misty throughout the earlier seasons, that, they bickered. Like, she followed him initially because he wrecked her bike, and it started off just being, oh, I'm just following you so you can repay me for my bike. But then she stuck around a lot longer than that. And ultimately it just, kind of faded in, and no one, the bikes just ended up becoming a non-issue because, well, she spent so much time with him. And, Ash and Misty bickered a lot, particularly early on. It did mellow out over the course of, the original series up until, the beginning of the Hoenn stuff when, Brock and Misty left, and then Brock came back. But you see, you have a lot of those moments. There are a lot of moments where they do show they care about each other. I know, what was it called? It was the episode where Ash becomes a ghost, and he's with the Gengar and the Ghastly and the Haunter. And, Misty is genuinely worried about this. Obviously, it seems like Ash is dead. Like, oh yeah, she's worried. And I think Ash even has a moment where he's like, oh wow, Misty is worried. And you have also moments of them showing jealousy, them making comments that are very hinting. Now, some of them, admittedly, were put into the dub, but they weren't all in the dub. There was a lot of stuff that was still in the Japanese version. You also have Pokemon 2000, where there was a lot of, Pokeshipping stuff in that. And it shows that, yes, despite the fact that they have made that they act like they don't like each other, they do genuinely care. And even their instincts push them towards each other. Like, there's one episode where there was a fog and they couldn't see. So then they were like, okay, let's hold hands so that we don't get separated. Sensible. Ash and Misty are like, and then they just walk off, and then Brock's sitting there like, what the heck, guys? I can't see anything. It's like, oh yeah, Ash and Misty, you don't like each other, huh? And you seem awfully eager to hold hands with each other and then walk away from Brock. Poor Brock. But yeah, this stuff is, even the meanness that they got, it's like, it was probably in the early on, before they actually really got to know each other. But it's like, yeah, you can see that there was development of the characters. Ultimately, that could only go so far because, again, the nature of it, and they're honestly just kids. But you can also see, even in the recent episodes of Sun and Moon, when Ash and Brock and Misty come back, finally, and you can see that Ash and Misty have this very playful, they're very playful with each other, and especially Misty seems to be a lot more playful with Ash. And it's like, okay, no, but this is nice stuff. And you see, despite the fact that they did have all their bickering early on, they did really grow to care about each other. And oh my gosh, don't even get me started when Misty was leaving, and you have this whole thing that's very much pushing the whole she really cares about Ash. Which, if I remember correctly, I think some of that was added in the dub version of it. But still, there's a whole lot of build-up with that. But it's something that you can genuinely care about and genuinely root for because these characters care about each other. Now, IchiRuki, this is a good one because again, the same thing goes on with these characters is they make some mean comments, they kick each other, they complain, but deep down, you know that they genuinely love and care about each other. And you look at these characters and you're like, obviously they love each other and they're going to get together. Some bad writing and a terrible ending notwithstanding. But you can see throughout, even just shoot the first couple of arcs, you can see that despite the fact that they only know each other for a relatively short amount of time during the Substitute arc and the Soul Society arc, they care about each other a lot. Like Rukia was able to give Ichigo power. Like, Ichigo always had this sense of he wants to protect people, but he never had any real power, and oftentimes he was seen as just sort of a delinquent because of his hair. But then he gets this power to become a Shinigami, and he can help, he can do stuff, he can protect, he can fight for people, and that's something that he genuinely, he really wanted. And you can see, the way he and Rukia grow and care about each other, regardless of the meanest things that they say. Says, don't at all come close to negating the ways they care about each other. No matter how many times she calls him a fool, no matter how many times he cusses her out. Like that one part where he's sick and tired of everyone cheering on that psychic guy. I don't remember what his name was, but Then she comes up and she does the blah ha ha ha, and then he's just like starts cussing her out. And he's just like, stop it! I'm sick of that. But you have all this great moments like things like the memory and the rain arc. One of the best scenes that they have is when Rukia is talking to Ichigo, basically saying, okay, I understand that you've got stuff in the past, like especially relating to his mom and all the horrible stuff that happened with that. And she basically says, I understand that this stuff is really important to you. And I believe she used the words, I do not want to trample on your heart, because Kubo loves all that flowery poetry. But she's saying, like, she respected his boundaries and said that, if you want to talk to me about this, you can, but I'm not going to force you. And it's this respecting of Ichigo's, feelings, like, and someone who he hasn't really known all that long. And it's like, and it's a nice sign that no matter what she said, Rukia cares about him. And for Ichigo, Rukia stopped his reign. Like, you have all this flowery stuff going on, and all this deep, metaphors and stuff, how she gave him this power, and when she's taken by Byakuya and Renji, first off, he almost dies trying to fight them, which was a losing fight, and then he goes into Soul Society, he crashes that party to stop them from executing her. I mean, it's practically a suicide run to go in there against all of the other Shinigami, but he fights tooth and nail to save Rukia. Wow. It's like, and that's just the first couple of arcs. It's like, wow, this is obvious. Like, you can obviously tell that they care about each other, no matter what they say, because they genuinely do care and respect each other. And that's the kind of thing, is with these kind of pairings, you want to have... The bickering stuff is just sort of fun with the funny lines, like you can look at the scruffy looking nerf herder and stuff. But you want to give people enough to really root for these relationships, to make people like them and want them to get together. As the writer, that's what your aim is with pairings. People liked that Han and Leia got together because they had that build up, and they had... despite the fact that they would bicker with each other, you can tell that bickering wasn't mean. They didn't legitimately hate each other, because this is important. Some people will look at characters who bicker and hate each other and constantly insult each other and go, "Oh, it's so cute." Like, no, it's not cute. They hate each other. But, handled properly, you can have these. You could have the bickering be playful and fun and stuff that people can just laugh at, not make people go, ugh. Speaking of, let's talk about Hermione. Ron and Hermione. I talked about stuff like this before. I could sum it up with J.K. Rowling's not a good writer, but it's disappointing. Because I would have totally been supportive of Ron and Hermione getting together if the writing wasn't so bad. Now, with Ron and Hermione, they did have some stumbling blocks early on. Like, when they're 11 and Ron is mean to her, okay, alright, fine. They're 11, they weren't the definitive trio that they ended up becoming. So, alright. Once they became friends, like, okay, you could see it. And then you had, bickering about, at Hermione's cat, and some of it was not that bad, but it's just like, I felt like it was not as, I didn't really feel like it was that great, but the problems have really started. I would probably pinpoint a lot of the major problems around the Goblet of Fire. I mean, sure, there are a lot of problems that originate with the Goblet of Fire. Oh my gosh. But you have the way that Ron acted with Hermione is so mean-spirited. Now, Ron acted like a dick a lot in that book, especially to Harry, his supposed best friend. But just talking about Hermione, it's like, oh yeah, he worshipped Crumb in the beginning, but when Hermione and Crumb are going to the dance together, he gets so pissy about it. And it's not the jealousy of the I like her, so I'm upset that she's with someone else. It's more of the you're fraternizing with the enemy kind of a thing, and it's like, dude, chill out. you're a Crumb fanboy. I'm like, yeah, okay, I get it. I get what Rowling was going for, but she took it too far, and I honestly think she doesn't understand what was really wrong with it. Because, like, the way that Ron treated Hermione was mean-spirited. And this is stuff I talked about before. It's where, despite the fact that some of these other pairings would take jabs at each other and would do these little shots, it's like, no. They obviously do care, but with Ron and Hermione, it's hard to believe that they actually care about each other the way they act. It's like, no, he's just acting like a jerk. It's hard for me to sympathize with Ron because, well, he's the one acting like a big jerk and hurting Hermione's feelings and genuinely hurting her feelings, not the saying something, just it's not just bickering, it's actually just almost bullying. And then you have Hermione getting really jealous and, pissy and vindictive at Ron when he's with, what was it, Lavender Brown? I'm trying to remember all the names of those characters. But it's like, but this doesn't come across as, I want these characters to get together. This comes out of, yeah, they wouldn't work. And they could have worked. I mean, if you had for the first couple of books, like, this could have been built up. With Ron and Hermione. It says, they're very different, but then they obviously have a lot of, commonality of being sort of outcasts, and, her being a Muggle born and him being from a poor family. It's like, but no. And the problem is that this stuff doesn't feel like they really genuinely care about each other. It feels like, not that they hate each other, but just that their relationship would be unhealthy. It doesn't do stuff that makes me want to root for them. And it's the writer's job. It's your job to make people want to root for the pairings you're going to make canon. If you don't give people reason to do it, then people aren't going to be excited or going to care, or even in some cases not be happy with the pairings that you chose. Which, of course, did happen with Harry Potter, because especially with stupid crap like forcing Harry with Ginny out of nowhere. But it's like, this is one of the things that Ron and Hermione miss that you have other pairings like Han and Leia had. It's like, no. You can see that how much Han and Leia love each other, especially by the time you get to the end. And even in Return of the Jedi, with Han mistakenly thinking that Leia and Luke liked each other, was willing to step back and respectively bow out, because he wanted to respect Leia's feelings, only for her to say, oh no, he's my brother. And then Han's like, what? But, and this is the sad part with Ron and Hermione, is that it makes it hard to root for them when they're so mean and petty and just nasty. And it's like, no, these are supposed to be our main characters, Rowling. What are you doing? We got enough of Harry's whiny wizarding teenage angst. We don't need this. Unfortunately, I genuinely think that Rowling just didn't understand what went wrong here. And unfortunately, not just the books overall, you also have everything down to long-time popular pairings like Ron and Hermione that ended up becoming canon, also suffering as well. So yeah, I think that's about it for this. You can have a lot of fun with these bickering love-hate relationships where they may take shots at each other, but they love each other, and you just really want to see them get together. Unfortunately, not all writers can pull this off, and sometimes it ends up just coming off as not very fun. Just, no. And starting next week, it'll be Halloween month, so I'll be doing a whole new round of spoopy topics. And I thought, this time, let me do something actually pretty spoopy. The theme of the month will be Resident Evil, and I'm going to have a lot of fun with that one. Now, if you want to submit a topic to me, you can either comment below, if you're on YouTube, or if you're on Tumblr, send me an ask and put topic, and then whatever topic you want me to talk about. Just make sure to follow the rules I'll be posting down below, and I'm also accepting topics relating to Resident Evil. If you want to watch last week's topic video, you can check that out here. If you want to watch next week's topic video, you can check that out here when I get that done. So, thank you for watching.